Okay, welcome to the Women in Publishing Summit. I'm Alexa Bigwarf, your host, and I am very pleased to bring the topic of Latinas in publishing to you today. I think this is going to be such an excellent topic to cover for two reasons. One, I hope we're attracting a lot of Latina women who are interested in writing, publishing, and selling their book and want the support just like any other woman. But also maybe need some help getting out ideas on where to market and how to market, or maybe just feel like they need some support as being a Latina in the publishing world where they may feel really marginalized. Second part of that is that we have a massive Spanish speaking component in the United States and around the world, really. So for you who maybe are not Latina speakers, but want to get some ideas on how to promote to the Spanish speaking market, or maybe some tips and tricks or resources or places to go to promote your book once you've had it translated, and even how to get it translated. I mean, there's so many things around this topic. So I am really pleased to bring you Liliana Lopez. She has been in my writing community for quite a while now. She's a children's book author, and I believe you're moving into some other types of books too, aren't you? Or did I just make that up?
No, I'm actually going to college right now so that I can go into literature. I will definitely
Amazing.
love to do a young adult book. That's my
Amazing.
goal. Yes.
That's so great. So she's originally from Mexico. She moved to California when she was a teen. She loves traveling and learning new cultures, and she's fluent in English and Spanish and also learning Italian. So good for you.
Yes.
And she has written a book. Tell me the name in Spanish.
Soy bonita.
Okay. And the name in English is
Am I pretty?
Am I pretty? That's right. I'm sorry. You did put that in your bio, and I just had a moment of panic. I was like, I've been seeing you post this book for a year and a half in my group on promo day, and it's a beautiful book for little girls. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, I wrote this book about 8 years ago. I was actually living in Maui at the time, and I noticed a trend with little girls where they don't seem to accept themselves as they are because they're constantly bombarded on TV with what they should look like or what's the perfect look. So I wanted to write this book to let them know that they are just beautiful just as they are.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what their skin color looks like, what their hair, whether they're short or plump or,
Yeah.
tall and thin. They're just beautiful just as they are. And I think when you educate little girls from a younger age, the older that they get, the more healthier self-esteem that they have as they get older. And
Yeah.
especially within the Latin community, we don't get to tell our children much to love themselves.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I grew up. It's just, I don't know if it's a culture thing or not, but I think with little girls, we need to teach them to accept themselves more.
Mm-hmm. When you decided to write the book, did you do it in both languages immediately, or did you create it in one language first and then the other?
I wrote it in English first,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I wanted to do the translation into Spanish, which I translated it myself, but my grammar is not as well in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my good friend Maribel, who I grew up with and went to school in Orange County with, and she edited for me. She's a Spanish teacher at, I forget what college, but yeah.
That's awesome. Does she do other people's editing and
Yes, she
translation of
does.
others?
Yes,
Okay, we'll have to
she
make
does.
sure that we get her
Mhm.
information in the link, because I have to say that translating into Spanish is probably one of the smartest things you can do because of the huge amount of Spanish speakers. But it's hard to find the resources and to know how to do that. And we translated Princess Monroe into Spanish. I have
Mhm.
a bilingual friend who was able to do that. But then the challenge comes into, we have no idea if her writing was good or bad, because we don't
Yeah.
speak Spanish. It's a trust thing. But oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk first about what it's like being a Latina writer. To be honest, I don't know a lot of them, and I don't know if that's because I am just like my community is narrow, or if because writing is just now starting to take off with Latinas? Do you feel like, do you have an answer to that?
I think a lot of the great Latino writers are coming from, like Mexico and South America. I don't, just like you, I don't know that many Latina writers here in the United States.
Uh-huh.
I think there's starting to be more because we are allowed to self-publish now.
Right.
But I don't really know that many big Latina writers. I really don't. And as I was researching, uh, I saw I took my sister to Barnes and Nobles to help me look for Latino writers, and
Mhm.
there was that many. There were
Mm,
a lot of books that have been established, obviously in English, that have been translated into Spanish, but these were all American writers,
right.
and they weren't really that many. Maybe we found like two or three that had
Really?
like a lot of books. Yes,
Wow.
yeah.
So I think you are right, though, that with self-publishing, like we'll see this grow, but I think it's even more important than to be able to, because all of us look for mentor groups and people to help us along in the way.
Hmm.
So I think, who knows, maybe you'll find yourself as a leader in, kind of being that shining light for other Latina writers who are trying to get through. Have you had any, do you think, struggles because of this, because of the fact that there aren't a lot of other Latina writers out there?
Well, obviously, like every beginning writer, you want to go to the traditional route.
Mm-hmm.
As we did a lot of sent a lot of the query letters and everything, I got a lot of shut downs. I mean, I got a lot of like negatives that a lot of people never even responded.
Mm-hmm.
So it is like I'm not sure if it's because the the Latin community or because I'm a Latina or something. But it really boggles my mind because there are about 60 million Hispanic people in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just like getting this American writers' books translated into Spanish, they're really missing on a huge market if you don't find many Latino writers that you can represent.
Right. Yeah,
So.
I agree with you. And I think this is probably something that we'll see a bigger push for. I hope. I think it's great to have the representation out there for all communities and and selfishly, like I live in a place where we have a lot of Spanish speakers in our community, and I would like to see more bilingual books so that I
Mhm.
can read to my kids, and introduce them to Spanish words and things like that. It's hard to do if you're not a native speaker. I totally get that, but obviously the stories that are coming from the the actual Latin community make it more authentic in terms of, like, now you not only get a book that's been translated into Spanish, but you're probably talking about cultural things that are
Mhm.
more representative of the Latin communities and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
I think it's great that you went out and you wrote this story in the first place, and that you are hopefully going to be, setting the stage for other Latino writers to have more representation and to get their books out there. So I
Mhm.
don't know if you want to talk about this then, about how non-Latino writers get their books marketed in the Spanish speaking world, but
Well, no, I mean, I think it's great that that people want their work to be in Spanish. I think that's great. I
yeah,
really do. And they definitely have to learn to know their audience. What is it that they like?
yeah.
Uh, if you notice, a lot of Hispanics, they love entertainment. I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of like the movie ticket sales are by Hispanics.
Really?
They love to be entertained. So it's really just knowing their audience, obviously not doing anything that is going to, cultural appropriation or anything like that, but just to respect it.
Hmm.
And And a lot of the children, Hispanic children, they're bilingual.
Hmm.
So when you introduce them to like the American book, obviously they're going to love to see it in Spanish as well, because and they're going to be like, "Oh, that's in English. Oh, look, it's in Spanish now."
Hmm.
So,
That's a really excellent point that you
mhm,
bring about knowing the audience. Like a lot of us will just think, oh, there's 60 million Spanish speakers in our country. I should just translate my book. But are there, you mentioned that they love to be entertained. So on that line of thought, are there certain genres that you can never imagine purchasing because of like cultural or like, or some that are like, these types of books should definitely be translated into Spanish. We will eat them up.
I think, well, like myself, like growing up, I loved science fiction
Hmm.
and I love fantasy. And I think a lot of Hispanics love those kind of genres. They
Hmm.
definitely, with the movie, they love action movies. Anything that's big and explosive and huge. As an adult now, I'm not a big fan of those now, but
Right.
yeah, like, yeah, now they love all those type of like huge. Um,
Yeah. Well, obviously we're speaking in very huge generalities here, so we should
mhm,
probably pull it back a little bit and say if someone wants to get to know their audience and they're not
mhm.
a native Spanish speaker, do you have, where are some places that they can go? What are some resources that they can use? Are there some like groups about Latina books or websites or anything like that? Do you know of anything that would be a great place to learn more about how to market or how to find your right audience?
Well, out of all the funny places, Instagram is
Oh.
actually becoming huge. Like I
Hmm.
look a lot of I type Spanish words into them like hashtags,
Hmm.
then I see what people are you know posting and stuff like that. And so I look at what's popular. There are a lot of like a lot of accounts that gear towards the Latin community. And if you look at those accounts to see what they like,
Hmm.
especially like, like I don't know if you're familiar with La Loteria,
Mm-mm.
which is like the lottery. It's a game.
Hmm.
So you get to like pick cards and then they have to match the picture. So you get like, it's kind of like bingo, but it's like
Okay.
a Mexican bingo.
Uh-huh.
So you type words that like, you know, maybe like children's book or like, but in Spanish, like libros en español, and then you start to see everything that's coming up. So then that is a good place to start to see, because Instagram is huge.
Yeah. Yes,
And
especially for children's books.
yeah, and I'm really surprised about how many Spanish are starting to come up. So just look up the word in Spanish, see like say maybe you're like a fantasy writer. So libros de fantasía. So then you will type the hashtag and then you'll see like everything that's come up and see what, and I know I'm not a big fan of like the whole likes and stuff like that, but just see what people like. Oh, maybe this has more likes. So this is what teenagers like now.
Hmm.
I know a lot of the teenagers now. Well, I it does. I don't think it matters what nationality you are, but definitely like romance, like cute little romance novels and stuff like that. Not so much with like, oh, love, love, but it's like an empowering woman,
Hmm.
like especially like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're sitting here thinking, I don't know a single word in Spanish, Google
Mhm.
is your friend. You can go to
Yes,
Google and ask it to
exactly.
translate just about anything, or you can make some new friends or contact Liliana and
Yes.
look for some help in this area.
Yeah.
I do think that we are going to see a big push towards more books in Spanish.
Mhm.
I really do think, and that's one of that we've been working towards trying to get some of our books translated. I mentioned that we translated Princess Monroe,
Mhm.
which we were very excited about doing because she's a biracial princess anyway. So it's
Mhm.
great to have her represented, to little girls who might see her and feel like they identify more with her than some of the other princesses anyway. But now we've gotten to the point where we're really struggling because it's like, okay, we have this beautiful book. It's in Spanish, and we have no idea how to sell it in the United States to Spanish speakers. So, what have been some of your best tactics, either on Amazon or, I mean, you just shared with us your Instagram stories, but do you have, just from a marketing a Spanish title, do you have some tips and resources that you can provide?
Well, I've been very blessed because my sister is has worked with a lot of the Hispanic women around here in Los
Wow.
Angeles, so she knows a lot of Hispanic women that she has been introducing me to.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why she has helped me in regarding like getting my book out there. So I suggest to like start following like Hispanic artists or actresses and things like that, and try to get like their publicists or something, because that's what we're trying to do as well.
Hmm.
We're still that's one of the struggles, actually, now that you mention it, is
Hmm.
just trying to, it's not that we don't know the audience, it's just like trying to get into like with people that will help us market the book well.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's just it is a bit, I think, out of everything, that is the struggle, the just the marketing part, and
Yeah,
just
for
trying to
everybody.
yes,
For everybody.
yes,
Um,
uh-huh.
I would say if you're listening to this interview and you have any ideas on this topic, or you know anyone who does marketing into the Hispanic markets or anything like that, we'd love to hear from you. This will be, you can head over to the Women in Publishing Summit Facebook page. It's just facebook.com/.
Mhm.
Women in Publishing, and send us a message, because we'd love to be able to add more resources to this. It's marketing in general is so challenging, and then to try and
Mhm.
get into a niche that you're not like super comfortable with. um what were, just in general, as an author, this doesn't have to be related to whether you're writing for Hispanic or Spanish audiences or not, but what were some of the biggest challenges that you've had across the board, and how have you overcome those in terms of marketing your book?
I think it's definitely the budget.
Yeah, good point.
It's as a self-publishing, I think that's one of the biggest struggles about the budget.
Hmm.
I think you just think, oh, I'm going to put my book out there, and then it's going to and then it's going to sell like 1,000 copies the next day.
Right.
But it's life is not that way. So that's just the biggest thing. You definitely have to have some money for budgeting, like for advertisement available,
Hmm.
because I think that's where a lot of the chunk of your money is going to go to advertise.
Yeah.
Um, it really is just that way. That's that struggle, and just when everything changing with the algorithms and Facebook and Instagram, it's also a constant struggle. Like
Mhm.
the less people are seeing your posts, and then so they want you to pay more. So it's just trying to find something else like that's huge to social media, where they're just not like limiting your post as well. That has been a
Yeah.
struggle.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think this is one of those areas where people really, 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 they just have no idea until they get into it. It's all of us, every author. Like, we
Mhm.
assume, okay, we've written this amazing book. We did a great launch. We've done some marketing. We put it out on blog tours. We've done this. We've done that. We put it on Amazon, and nobody's buying the book. And it's like, why is
Mhm.
nobody buying the book? It's because it's every day. It's you're competing against millions of other
Mhm.
books and millions of other authors. And how do you get around that? Have you found any author platform building strategies that have really helped you, either on the English side of your book or the Hispanic side?
I noticed that if you definitely not post too much like on Instagram,
Hmm.
but try to look for like good hashtags. And also like there was in January, there started this writer loop.
Uh-huh.
like a hashtag writer loop, and then I got into that, and then I gained a lot of followers.
Ah, that's good
And
resource
it
written
was
that
so
down.
yeah, so start doing like things like that where you're like putting yourself out there, liking a lot of posts and writing, not to be too like too much, but
Right.
just to be like classy about it.
Yeah.
um and just try to put yourself out there as much as you can. I'm myself is I'm more of an introvert, so it's something that I'm working on. But I do, every time that I see something that I'm like, I put myself, oh, like, oh, look, here's my book. But definitely start doing that more. Just
Do you run giveaways or any kind of like influencer tours or any of those things?
So I did run a giveaway, but I didn't get that much feedback from that. So I had to stop it. And I was thinking, actually just thinking the last couple of days, uh, we form, like within the groups, maybe I see a lot of this, like, oh, follow this person and follow this person, and each person has like a giveaway. So I think if you do something like, do join that bandwagon, I think that might work. It's
Hmm.
just trying to, I mean, I've been trying everything to see what works. Some stuff like it does generate sales. Some stuff is just like crickets.
Right.
So
It's always a test really to see
yes.
what's going on with your markets. Now, I speaking of Instagram, I remember when you did like a huge block of Instagram posts that there was like
Yes.
9 of them that were the cover of your book.
Hmm.
That was super cool. Did you post them one day at a time or did you post them all together or how did you make that work?
No, it's actually an app. It's
Oh,
called Grids.
it's called what?
Grids,
Grids.
Grids. Yes,
Okay,
Grids.
cool.
And then you just like pick the picture, and you can either pick like three, 6, or 9. And then it will do the grids for you, and then it will
Awesome.
post. So you just got to make sure that you post it in the like the one. You got to post the 1 and the 2, otherwise it's going to be all over the place. And those are great. Those
Yeah.
are really great. But my sister said I was using them too much, so she's like, okay, you need to stop that for now.
It was getting to be too much, huh?
Yes.
Well, I love your Instagram feed. I think
Thank
it's
you.
fun. You post beautiful pictures. I love how much your cat shows up.
Yes, she's actually in my book. She's
Oh.
this is her right here. That's
Oh,
her.
hello.
Oni.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. And she shows up in a lot of pictures with the book behind her, which I think is genius, especially from a marketing standpoint. And if you're doing anything like cats of Instagram or something like that. And then,
Mhm.
you'd be surprised, people, if you're not familiar with Instagram or not using it, you'd be surprised how many followers cats of Instagram and dogs of Instagram can get. At one point in time, I think I had more dogs following me on Instagram than people. Because I
I
was
believe
posting
it.
a lot of pictures of my dogs and using the hashtag dogs of Instagram. But it's a genius marketing technique because if you
Mhm.
think about it, people who have cats often have families and
Yes.
people who have dogs have families. So
Mhm.
if you're capturing them from one way and then you get the crossover effect of them also saying, oh, that book looks really good, what's this all
Mhm.
about, let me click. And um, her Instagram page will be in the links for this, but she is on there at the Liliana Lopez with just one L, so Liliana Lopez.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
and it's a fun feed. But you know what? I would say one of the tips that I have while we're talking about Instagram and if you're feeling intimidated about going out there, one thing you can do is you can follow someone and then you can look at their followers. So now you've been introduced to Liliana. She is a
Mhm.
Latina writer. She writes children's books in English and Spanish. So you can kind of look at who she's following and who is following her. And there may be some great people that you can also follow that might be interested in what you have going on. So, and that's the other thing I would say is that, make sure that you are following and trying to get the followers that are going to want to buy your book, which is a hard thing to do. But
Mhm.
if that's the dangerous part about using the hashtags that may not be quite as relative, because if
Mhm.
you do wind up with 1,000 followers who are just into cats and don't happen to be interested in children's books, then it's a hit or miss type situation, right?
That's true.
Go ahead.
I also recommend like see if there are any Hispanic radios around
Mm,
you. So try to see if you can get your advertisement in there as well, because a
that's a
lot of
great
people
idea.
love listening to the radio. Maybe it's an LA thing, but there's a huge commutes here in LA, as I'm sure
Mhm.
you heard of the traffic,
Uh-huh.
and so Hispanic radio, it's huge here. So if you can get into that as well, try to advertise on that as well.
That's a very smart idea. And I
Hmm.
guarantee you can either find someone that that speaks Spanish who would craft an ad for you, or you can
Hmm.
Google this and find it, or you can reach out to Liliana and maybe she'll do some translating for you. I'm just I'm just promoting your services that I don't even know exist. But but I think that's a really good idea. And the reason
Mhm,
that I know that's such a really good idea is because I know the power of so I was in the military and we lived in Germany, and there was
mhm,
one armed forces network that played American music programs, um, all those types of things. And when your brain is overwhelmed and you don't want to listen to German and you want something that reminds you of home, we would always listen to the Armed Forces Network, our
yeah.
English speaking channel. So I
Mhm,
know for a fact that like people will do that. And because it's only one station out of all the many stations, or in LA, there might be a few more. Here, if we have one, it's probably just one. Um, you're going to hear everything because you're not switching the channel on the commercial breaks.
yes. Well, and if you only have one radio station, then every Hispanic in your area is going to be listening to that station.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. That's such a great point. When is there like a Latin history month?
I don't know about that. That's actually a good
Put you on the
question.
spot.
No, no, no. It's something definitely I need to look into.
I'm glad you
I
said you don't know, because I felt very shy about asking that question, because I was like, I don't want to look like a total
No.
idiot here. Let's see. It's looks like it is in September.
Oh,
September
September.
15th
Oh,
to
wow.
October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Well,
So,
September 15 is the Mexican independence,
aha.
like the 16th. Yeah. So I can understand why that will be a huge month. A lot of independences.
Exactly. So if you're looking to promote a Spanish translated book, that's always a great time to get on media and to promote those things around those types of situations and
Hmm.
all of that stuff. So, well, do you have anything else that you want to add in terms of like tips to aspiring writers, tips to people who want to get their books translated into Spanish? We didn't really go into that. Can we talk about that for a second?
Oh, yes. Well, I definitely recommend that you need to hire a professional editor, whether it's in English or in Spanish. You need
Right.
to hire one because as much as you think you know that you're doing well, you're too close to your project.
Hmm.
And so you might not see the errors sometimes, so the grammatical errors. So I definitely recommend that you set a budget just for that.
Hmm.
I think it's great that with your Facebook group, there you have so many people in there that offer everything like
Hmm.
editing. That's how I found my for my next book coming up. Laura helped me edit my book, so that's great.
Yay. That's
Um,
wonderful.
yes, I'm still translated into Spanish, and then I will have my friend Maribel
Mhm.
edit it for me. But I definitely recommend that. I also recommend you research. Like one of the mistakes that I made with this book was that I didn't write enough pages. So I couldn't have it like, especially if you wanted to do printing on demand,
Mhm.
so they wouldn't take it.
Mhm.
So try to research if you have something in mind, like, oh, I want to do a printing on demand. Research to see like, well, how many pages do they do or do they not do, so that you at least have enough pages to do that.
Mhm.
Um,
That's a
I
great
did,
point.
yes, I did end up going to China to have it printed, and that was great. I love what they did. It wasn't inexpensive, but then I didn't know that, okay, with shipping, okay, I understand shipping, but once you have it here in the States, I didn't know that you had to hire a broker to bring your books in. So that was
Oh.
an extra expense. And then apart from the broker, you have to pay the facility fee, like the storage.
Mhm.
And then if you wanted them to deliver it to your house, they charge you extra if you don't have a business address. Take it to your home. That's extra.
Wow.
So it's just so many added fees, which is great. It's something that you need to keep in mind as if you're self-publishing, that you do have to have a certain amount of money uh, that you're going to be using towards all that.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
I just to piggyback on that, I think that's such an excellent point, that a lot of authors also come into this not knowing or understanding. They assume that because they're self-publishing, they can do it all by themselves and there aren't going to be any expenses. I've never tried to use an out-of-country printer before for children's books, so I didn't even know any of those things. So thank you
Yes.
for sharing that. That's really important that you do your research on those types of things. But there are expenses that come with publishing a book, even if you're doing it all by yourself. So if anybody ever tells you, don't pay anybody to help you, they're kind of silly, because you need the help sometimes and you should be paying for professional help because,
Yes.
yeah, I'm a self-publisher. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's just say that, like, I did my first book all by myself. I learned some really expensive mistakes. And looking back on it now, I wonder, would I have hired somebody to help me through the process? Probably not. So this is something you learn for like your second book. But, go ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely, I mean, as much as we like, no, I can do it on myself, it's like, no, the reality is you cannot.
Right.
One, because you don't have the experience to know, like, there's going to be roadblocks, and you need to
Mhm.
have somebody that's going to help you how to go around those roadblocks. So
Absolutely.
I definitely recommend to hire somebody, and also keep in mind that you might like, you think, oh well, they're too expensive and everything, but it's like they're really not. You can definitely find somebody that's within your budget as well, but also keep in mind is that you get what you pay for.
Yes, so
So
true.
yeah,
Like,
it's like,
it's so true. I mean, I've seen people, this is funny because in a self-publishing group I was in the other day, someone was asking about the layout for a children's book. And I was like, for our layouts, because I've seen what goes into them and I pay the bills, it's anywhere between, depending on if the illustrator knew how to lay out the book or if the illustrator worked with the layout artist or how it came to the layout artist, it could be a couple $100 or it could be in the thousands of dollars
yes.
because it's so much work to get everything right. And then somebody under me posted, I pay $30 for my interior layout. And I'm like, I need to see this book, because if you've found somebody who can do a good book for $30, I need to find this person, because it takes hours and hours and
Yeah.
hours and hours. But you don't know
um,
these things.
yeah, I'm really lucky that my illustrator, she knows how to, she does my book layout, obviously for an extra fee, which,
Mhm.
I'm happy to pay because I don't know how to do any of that.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit there and waste my time into something that I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
So,
I'm generally very suspicious when I hear people say that they can get interior layout for an adult book or a children's book for
mhm,
under $200, really,
yeah.
unless it's just a simple straight text with a header, chapter
Mhm.
header, chapter 1 text, chapter 2 text, because it really is a time consuming product and there's so much, especially with children's book, like there's a lot to know about industry standards on an adult book, but with children's books, I mean, you have to worry about bleed and you have to worry about the interior margin. And if you put something too close to the middle and then you have an important piece of the image like stuck in the binding so you can't see. I mean, there's so many things.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
And
you know,
also get a Kindle ready. That
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So
that's tough.
she did that for me. She
Mhm.
knows how to do it, and I'm like, can you just do all that for me? Because
Yeah,
I don't know. And
exactly.
and I rather be, and I rather I'd rather have somebody that I know and that I trust and she's fair.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to go and look for somebody cheap because it's just not
Right.
going to be the same.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you nailed it when you said you get what you pay for. That's
Hmm.
generally the case. Okay, well, we went off in a totally different direction that I did not expect to go. Let's bring it back to our original topic
Uh-huh.
for Latinas who are trying to get published, self-published or otherwise. I'd like you, if you have any, just like words of encouragement or tips for the other Latina ladies out there. Do you have anything you'd like to say to them?
I definitely would like to tell them that to keep going, not to worry about like maybe the lack of the people out there that are writing for Hispanics,
Hmm.
and you could be like the next J.K. Rowling, so don't give up.
That's right.
A- And if you're going to self publish, I mean, I know we just said that it is hard to self publish, but just because it is hard doesn't mean don't give up. Keep doing it. Start following or research a lot of Hispanic publications. Like
Hmm.
if you go on, again, on Instagram, I'm using Instagram because it is a huge market and it's
Yeah.
a huge social media following where
Hmm.
a lot of this magazine, Hispanic magazines, are on it. So start following them, see what they're putting out, start reaching out to Hispanic ladies, like maybe actresses or singers or what, or whomever you look up to, and
Yeah.
start reaching out to them, or the like you said, like look at their followers and see who's following them.
Hmm.
But start with looking at the Latina magazines and publications. So I definitely recommend that, and they're gonna see that a lot of. Uh, as I research all of this, I started to see how many women want to get out there,
Hmm.
and not necessarily just like publish book, but just like everything else with like other things that they're doing.
Hmm.
And also, like if you're writing a book, and you're thinking, well, should I write it in Spanish or should I write it in English? A lot of Spanglish books are out there too as well. They're becoming very popular. I mean, you see this show Dora the Explorer, how
Uh-huh.
like she talks like in English and Spanish.
Uh-huh.
Don't be afraid to start writing a book like that. I'm actually working on another children's book where I'm going to have Spanglish words. At
Good.
first, I was hesitant. I'm like, oh no, but then I'm like, well, why not? Because if you think about it, that's how I speak. Like sometimes, like when I'm around my sister, I'll like go back and forth between in Spanish and English.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna write this book like as I speak, and I know that's it may sound weird, but it will
I
also
don't think
be.
it's weird.
But even like if an American wants to read it, like an English speaker wants to read it, then you can have in the back like what the Spanish words mean.
Hmm.
So just also write what you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
that's a huge thing. Or like write what you wanted to be for children's writer, like what you wanted to see when you were a child.
Hmm. I love it.
So
That's all very good advice,
mhm.
both all, for aspiring Hispanic writers, for non-Hispanic writers. I mean, you've provided a lot of great information. Um, I really appreciate your time and insight on this. It's the first time we've actually dug into what it's like to be a non-native English speaker, writer. So this is,
Mhm.
or well, I suppose you're a native English speaker. Listen to me, I'm getting all tongue-tied. It's the first time we have brought on a Latina to speak specifically about publishing in the Spanish market. And I
Mhm.
really appreciate it. It's something I definitely want to learn more about.
Mhm.
It's something that I really see the importance of putting my books into Spanish, and for especially the people who are writing big, powerful stories, children's books too. I mean, you can't go wrong with having more children's books out there in multi languages, but the big stories, the self-help, the like my book Sunshine After the Storm, a survival guide for the grieving mother, like I really want that in Spanish because
Mhm.
Spanish speaking mothers lose babies too,
Oh
and
yes.
obviously I want it in every language, but I got to
Mhm.
start start someplace.
Well, I also too, what really helped me a lot as well is the library. I was able to get into my book into the library,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of children go, that you take your child to the library and it's like, oh, look, there's a book in Spanish.
Yeah.
And they will start recommending that. Oh, I saw this book at the library.
Hmm.
So if you can get into the library, even if you just want to donate your book in Spanish, that also helps a lot.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, thank you so much for your time and all your knowledge today.
Thank
I'm
you.
really glad to have you on here. Her book, Soy Bonita or Am I Pretty? Wonderful children's book. Go check her out on Instagram. It's on Amazon in both languages, I would assume.
Yes.
And on your website, we'll have all of her links in the notes. But thank you again, Liliana Lopez, for your time and information.
Thank you for having me. Que tengan buen día.